Welcome back, folks, to the Strategy and Light live stream with Get a Grip on Lighting. Greg and Michael here from San Diego, California. Greg, what is the hashtag?
One call does it all.
One call does it all, baby, with BillBrownSales.com. Got to go to Bill Brown Sales. They got everything.
Yeah, components, anything you need to make a fixture, and they also have innovative product to make it better than other fixtures. So check them out for everything you need with fixture LED components.
One call does it all, sucker. Go to BillBrownSales.com. Mike Gagnon, thanks for coming on the live stream at Strategies and Light.
Thanks, my pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for being here.
What do you want to talk about, financing or controls?
Financing.
Ooh.
Money.
Ooh.
Let's talk money.
All right, so what's the appropriate interest rate for a lighting job?
Oh, no, I'm talking about money having to do with mergers, acquisitions, financing,
okay.
Things of that nature.
Does the industry need the consolidation?
Is it in consolidation?
Does it need consolidation?
Oh, it's in consolidation.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Does it need it?
Does it need it? The smart money follows where it needs to go to drive out competitors. I mean, this happens in every industry, whether it's lighting or semiconductors, low tech, high tech. It's just the way it is.
So what exactly do you do? I know you did a speech here, a couple talks, it sounds like.
Right.
But what does your company do, or what do you do?
Alamaj Advisors does strategic advisory services primarily for CEOs in the lighting space.
Mm-hmm.
We do strategy, help them on the financing side when they need it, on partnerships, and that's pretty much it. We help them with strategic accounts as necessary, and we've been doing that in the lighting space for about 7 or 8 years. And Alamaj is French for lighting, by the way. I just throw that in there. And my history is as a serial entrepreneur in the semiconductor space and also in network infrastructure. I've been a venture capital investor. I started a fund. I've sold companies from that fund, and also the companies that I've been involved in as a CEO or founder or what have you have had 3 different kind of exits. One was an IPO, one was an M&A, and one was a Chapter 11. So I've seen all sides of that, and there's a lot of that experience that's been brought to bear into the LED lighting space. LED is a semiconductor device, right? And that is the core of what's inside every luminaire. And the thing is, how do you build a better luminaire with all of the other components around it? Whether it is the driver, the optics.
You call Bill Brown Sales.
Well, okay.
One call does it all.
Thank you, sponsor. But you know what we were talking about. We did a couple of presentations this week. One of them was as the co-chair of the investor forum, where we talked a lot about the trends in the industry from
an investment in the company.
Yes, but I'm going to describe investment in a couple of different ways.
Like short selling?
From like 2000. This can be edited, right?
Yeah. No, it's live. You're live right now.
Oh, I'm cooked. So from 2010 to 2015, there was about 100 M&As in the space. Acuity, Cree, Signify, Eaton, Hubble, and then a whole bunch of others. And in the last couple of years, it's only been Acuity and Signify, because the other ones have either been acquired themselves, whether it was Cree or Cooper. Some of the other ones that had currency, meaning a market valuation, to do M&As like LSI Lighting, Revolution. One is falling on really hard times. The other one, has gone down and is popping back up again. But at the end of the day, the number of M&As in the industry has dwindled to basically just 2 companies that are doing the bulk of it. So that's what everybody sees, and that's kind of a downer if you're building a company. And so what's really taken its place, and not as many people are aware of it, is the private equity industry that has come along. And in the last 5 years, they have acquired something like 60 companies on their own. They've done some add-ons, so the grand total of companies that those funds, this private equity funds, have acquired have maybe bought 70, 80 in total. And there's another 10 or 12 holding companies, private companies in lighting that from wherever they get their funding from, they've been doing acquisitions. Acquisitions are done for a couple of reasons. One of them, in an early stage of an industry, is where venture capital comes in, they see a high growth opportunity in a space, and they start investing in these companies. And if we go back in that same point in time, from 2008 to 10 or something like that, you had a lot of money coming in from venture because this was viewed as a high growth opportunity that funded companies from Lunera to Digital Lumens, Enlighted. Those are some of the big ones.
And all these names don't exist anymore.
All these names don't exist anymore. A couple of them have
That was capital vaporization.
Well, thank you very much. And why don't you come in here and sit in this chair?
Yeah.
That'll be a lot of fun. And I'll interview you. But you get the drift. Terralux. I mean, these are companies that raised $80 million. And some returned to zero capital, as in Chapter 11. Others were acquired for a fraction of what the money had gone in. So there's really been very few home runs. And one of the points I made yesterday was the fact that Color Kinetics was probably the first one that was ever a home run. And that goes back to the very first days of LEDs and LED lighting. They went public and then they were acquired. So it was a double win.
Sure.
Right? That hasn't been seen again, ever. So the venture capital is long gone. From the big buck standpoint, I'll come back to the private equity guys in a minute, but back to the question about what else might be getting funded. There is some venture capital that is going into network lighting controls. There is some modest amount of capital, less than that, but some that is going into human-centric lighting and horticulture. Again, not a lot, because these currently are niches that offer some growth opportunities. But the real action, and this gets back to the first question about consolidation, is with the remaining several hundred companies that are out there, they're all much smaller. They have much less scale. And the ones that are doing very, very well are being acquired by private equity funds. And whether it was companies like Green Creative or ILP, I'm getting a little brain dead from having done all these presentations today, but there's about 60 or 70 of them that we went through quite a long list of that have been acquired because they have been successful and are successful. There are successful companies in LED lighting. They are growing, they are profitable. And when I talk about profitability for these kinds of companies, they're probably in the 15 to 20% EBITDA range.
Okay.
That's the kind of returns that private equity likes to see. They are funding strong management teams. They are then taking those teams and then doing add-on acquisitions to build more scale. And then one of two things happen. One is that private equity fund rolls over that bigger company into a larger private equity fund, and or there may be strategic opportunities, whether within the existing large lighting companies or other companies that might want to enter lighting, and they're currently at PE ratios that are acceptable to those kinds of acquirers. So that's kind of where it's at. And what I've just done here is combined in short order kind of what was the topic of conversation at the investor forum yesterday, which was attended by CEOs. We also had private equity funds on the panels and other luminaries, no pun intended. And then today we talked a little bit more of some of the emerging markets in lighting for health and in network lighting controls and horticulture. And lastly, I kind of made a plea pitch those other 300 companies that are out there, that there's a fundamental premise in any business and market, and that is the top 3 companies in any served available market generally achieve 70 to 80% of the profits in that segment.
That's a Pareto distribution.
It's the it's the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
And then everybody else that's in that space is all fighting for the crumbs.
Yeah, okay. It's also called the Matthew principle.
Okay.
To whom much is given, more will be given. He shall have in abundance. But to him who has nothing, even what he has shall be taken away. Right.
You really got to come over and sit in this chair. So one of the things in our
Maybe.
one of the things that we do at Alamage is also advising CEOs and their management teams.
What would you advise a CEO right now? Like right now, just buckle down. Hang
Well,
on.
that's too general. It's define your space in as narrow and tight of a way that you can
Carve out
in
a
terms
niche.
of your. That's right. Carve out the niche. This is all about niches, and
Interesting.
I don't want to be 5% or 2% of a $200 million submarket. I would rather own 50%, 40%, 6% of a $50 million submarket,
Sure.
because that's where the profit is.
Sure.
You're going to work a lot less hard. You're going to work a lot smarter.
And be focused. Yeah.
And be focused. Absolutely. It's a differentiated focus strategy on as narrow a segment as you can define. I mean,
Give me
that's
an
it in a
example of a
nutshell.
company that's doing that right now, without breaking any NDAs or anything. Like
Okay. Good question. This is not a company that I work
Advice. Yeah, sure.
with, that I advise, but from an afar standpoint, I look at someone in the C&I space like spec grade LED. Okay. Well, if you look at the market size of high bay, which generically is described as anything over 10,000 lumens, well, that covers a whole lot of markets
Sure
and
it does.
applications, right? Well, spec grade LED is up there doing things in the 30 and 40,000 lumen range. They do it exceedingly well, so I am quite certain that they've got some outstanding heat management. They know how to get a lot of punch out of their LEDs in terms of how they put them together. I'm quite certain that they also look at tangential markets, which is also why they have something in horticulture. Not because horticulture is gangbusters yet, because they're not, but they're really, really good at doing really high lumen output product. I look at another company, again, from afar, Linmore LED. I don't know how they're doing, but they've got a nice range of mid-range of products. They do some customization with their drivers. They offer lighting as a service.
Okay.
I believe some of their channel is a bit unique, but I could be wrong on that. But just a couple that come to mind.
Sure.
That you just say, I see them out there. I talk to them at the shows, and you kind of admire them from afar because they're doing it in a way that you think should be done. Now, hopefully, I'm right about that. And someone says, "Well, no, they're losing a ton of money." I don't know, but that's what I see. The example that I use in all of my presentations, and another one that I never consulted with, although in the days that I was doing analyst briefings, I used to talk to a guy by the name of Bill Blackley at Canal. And not that my advice made any...
Is that the disinfecting light fixtures, Canal?
Yeah. Well, fundamentally, these guys have been in business for God knows how long, and before there were LEDs. And what they were able to do is take all of their core competencies in understanding OSHA requirements and a whole bunch of other things that I have on a slide, but I just can't recall right now. And I rattle through each one of these things, and I say to the audience, look, these are all core competencies that you probably have in some way, shape, or form of your own companies. And I'm going to urge you, either with Alamage Advisors' help in doing what I call a SWOT plus process, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, strengths, that causes you to drill down really deeply into some of the areas that you are really, really good at what you do, and then figure out where that fits the best market with the best product that leverages all of your core competencies. To me, that's the best way to monetize your value prop, is understand what you do best across all dimensions of marketing and markets and sales and product and technology and operations and channel. We're not going to be good in all of those areas. We're probably going to be good or should be good in at least three. But if you have three legs to that stool that you're really, really good at, then pick the set of products and in a sub-market space that leverage those core competencies in these different areas. You'd be amazed at what some of the companies walk out of the room when we're done with that and said, you know, I knew we were pretty good here, but we never defined it down to that level, detail, and granularity to understand how good that was and how that could be leveraged in a unique kind of way to make the three legs of that stool, and then say, my product is going to be sold this way to this market with this set of features and benefits that nobody knows how to do. Those are entry barriers, and that's how you ultimately get to a profitable product. Rather own 60% of a $50 million market and 10%, 8%, whatever of a $500 million market. I guarantee that you're going to make money.
That's what I needed to hear. So lighting's a good place to be.
Every market is a good place to be when you're doing certain things to position oneself to be the best in the space that you're in.
So IoT is an emerging niche. It's not a niche yet. Circadian is an emerging niche.
Right.
It's not like sometimes when I'm talking with people about circadian, they're speaking in terms that everybody everywhere is going to have circadian effective lighting or integrated lighting, integrative lighting, like they call it.
Right.
And I really don't believe that.
Why is that?
Because I just see the adoption rate. Like, I sell light bulbs to end users every day. That's what I do. Okay. So I'm not an ivory tower guy. I'm swinging through the trees with a knife in my teeth. Okay. And there's zero interest from the grassroots in either IoT or circadian. Zero. Like, they don't ask for it at all.
Well, it's an emerging market, and the thing is, with respect to centric,
It's a market.
It's anecdotal right now because there's not enough data to prove that if I populate my office space with circadian lighting, there is some. It's minimal. I think Europe's ahead of us in that regard.
Yeah,
some
Bios
of the trials.
has some. You can buy some
Well,
stuff. Yeah.
there we go. Right down the hall here. That you got to collect data for a period of time, and the promise, the hope, you want to call it, that
you're gonna have 10 less sick days this year?
Don't want less sick days, but when you times 500 or 1,000 employees, and when you think of the lost productivity of that, really think about what you just said. And if that were the case, then what's that worth to an employer? That's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, but nobody's making that claim.
Well, it's, as I said, it's anecdotal right now because it takes a while to gather that kind of data.
Nobody's got the guts to stand in front of a real customer that's going to pay for it and say something like that to them. Nobody.
Well, we'll see. I mean,
unless you're a snake oil salesman.
There are some bets. I'm not in the snake oil business. There are some bets that you make with venture capital, with technologies. Certainly, some of the larger companies have spent a lot of money in that space.
Do you think this is more of a virtual reality, augmented reality play than it is really a lighting play? Like circadian lighting, like mimicking the sun. There's an augmented reality sort of element to that, or virtual reality element to that I don't think people have recognized yet.
There could be, but clearly by your questions, you're smarter than I in that space. So
that's probably true.
Yeah. And,
just that one, though.
Yeah, but seriously, it's anecdotal. The thought process.
Would you take a bet on something like that?
I don't invest. I don't invest in any company anymore. I stopped doing that 20 years ago.
Why?
That's just policy.
Okay.
Mama says you want to keep working half time, which for me is 40 hours a week because we're doing other things with the other 40. Just don't play with the house money. But I've had venture funds, and if I were a VC and I found the right company that passed all the tests that a qualified VC, which I have been, would want, including some of the proof points, then sure, I'd place a bet, because the bets that VCs make are from the standpoint of not getting 2 and 3 times returns. It's hitting the home run. It's getting 100x return, a 50x return. And a venture fund is looking for places to put money in. That's their reason for being. So there's some money in it. Certainly the disinfecting side of it is the medical side of of it is has some promise. Whether it has anything to do, and people talk about it more because of a coronavirus or any other virus, but there's certainly early evidence that points to the disinfecting side of certain kind of products that I perceive.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, it works. So if it works, and it can be proven to kill germs, whether it is in senior centers or hospitals or other places, you know, offices. I mean, let's get back to the office.
They still have to stop eating the bats, though.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the lights can only do so much. Right?
I can tell you, I can tell I'm not preaching to this choir here. You've been selling too many bulbs.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll tell you this, man. I've talked to a lot of people about this business, and there's a lot of what do you call it? Smoky mirrors.
Smoky mirrors. That's I think you've said that before. Sure.
You know, what's the word we called?
Snake
They call
oil,
it smoke oil. Yeah.
Smoke oil.
There's a lot of smoke
Snake
oil.
oil, man.
I call it smoke
We go
oil,
smoke oil.
not
Oh,
snake
okay.
oil.
Like combine the.
Yeah, it's smoke oil because it's like, yeah. We're all gonna get there. We're gonna get there, and it's like when?
Here's.
And it's setting up for a big bust.
You know, sometimes the answer to when is the the big question. But I can tell you, I've met an awful lot of really, really smart people over the years as engineers and visionaries. Some of most of them, with all candor, don't make the greatest CEOs, and it's also why many of them, become CTO or something of that nature as the business evolves, because it's the vision beyond the things that you and I can buy into because we're more pragmatists.
Sure.
Okay. And it's show me, prove it to me. But that's what venture capital is all about. It's going with people that are visionaries. It's especially going with people that have already done it once or twice in some other space, that their brain just works in crazy ways. I mean, I've worked with Mensas, and I mean, you sit down and have a conversation with these guys, these engineers, and I mean, they're like, it's right over my head. And I got to come back and ask 5 times, and the guy is just getting so, aggravated that I don't get it. But these kind of guys, they end up producing things that ultimately create a lot of value. But hey, look, venture capital is a risky business. For every 300 companies a partner looks at, they might have meetings with 30, second meetings with 15, third, fourth meetings with 5, and they invest in 1 out of every 300. It's a labor of love to be willing to do that. Now, do we do infinite due diligence on the first 300 on the first pass? Obviously not. And then after picking 1 out of 300, you get 1 or 2 for every 10 you invest in.
I wonder if the average would be higher if you just put their names in a hat and pulled 1 out.
Well, I think not.
You think there's some value in that scrubbing down process? Like you're able to find things?
I'm a process guy.
Because every time I hear it's like, we got lucky on this 1.
Yeah.
And it returned at 1,000 to 1.
Well, 1,000 to 1
Everything
is the
else was a
grand
buzz.
slam. Look, that's not the case, and it's well proven from A-tier funds and even B-tier funds. Okay, the guys that hit the super grand slams, is who put the money in Cisco, who put the money in Google, who put the pick a company that's out in the news, who put the money in Facebook. And more people like you and I know what Facebook is like because we watched the movie, right? So they bet on this guy. Okay, so to get back to your point, though, it's not 1 grand slam and all the other ones busted. That's just not how the numbers work out. So for every 10 or so, they'll hit a home run. For every 100 or so deals that they did following that pipeline I just shared with you, there'll be 1 grand slam out of 100 and a couple of home runs out of every 10. Then you got singles and doubles, and then 50% of the balance go out of business.
Yeah. If you want to hit a home run and you're a lighting manufacturer, remember, folks, 1 call does it all. Brown Sales, baby.
Yeah.
Go to BillBrownSales.com, folks. Thank you for listening to the live stream, and we thank Lisa and Donnie and the rest of them at Bill Brown Sales.
That's right.
Mike Gagnon. Thank you for being a guest on the live stream.
Merci beaucoup. You said my name really, really well.
Oh,
I thank you.
No problem, man. I'm Canadian, so I know how to pronounce French.
Okay.
Folks, thank you for listening. And, like it, share it. You know how it works. Thanks, folks.